Should I go for an aggressive, air quotes, attorney? A lot of law firms market they mark themselves as aggressive. I was trained in the art of advocacy. That's what I do. And in American jurisprudence, we have a certain paradigm of dispute resolution that is really trial by battle. You hire these champions that are called lawyers. And that lawyer has an ethical obligation under the Code of Professional Conduct to represent you zealously. That's the word in the rule.
I find family law attorneys, a lot of the marketing is either it's, that they're aggressive or they're experienced or they'll fight for you or they'll, that's a lot of the websites. And I think that I always say you have one of two kinds of attorneys in my experience in family law. You either have that segment,
right,
and there are varying degrees of that, right? Some people are more extreme aggressive than others. And then you have the opposite side. You have the holistic people who are very family oriented, which I think is where we fall. Well, and when I say holistic, I mean like we take a whole family approach to the process. We don't just look at this through the myopic lens of, aggressive representation for the client, quote unquote.
Right.
We try to take a view of how do we help the family, how do we solve problems, which is why we do a lot of mediation in our practice. Even if you have a situation where you don't have any ongoing support or children or anything, and all you have to do is divide your estate or whatever, your relationship right now is going to have a large impact on the outcome and how easily you can settle and how quickly you can settle and all of those things. So if you just come straight out the gate just trying to stab the other person in the throat, metaphorically, so to speak, then you've pretty much destroyed any chance of getting out of this for,
right,
without extreme stress and grief, anxiety, spending tons of money, all that kind of stuff. So the relationship, even if it's just through the judgment, it's still important that you preserve certain aspects of the relationship that are going to help you move through this in a more fluid manner.
I agree. And that's an excellent point, that in order to get to a resolution of the case, you need to preserve at least some of the trust in your relationship.
Right.
Otherwise, you're just going to get on the litigation hamster wheel, or as I described it in a past podcast, it's like a freight train that's headed downhill, and once it gets going, you can't stop it.
And the thing with these firms that are advertising as aggressive or experienced or fighting for you or whatever their slogan of choice is around that, the main thing that they're doing is they're playing on your fears.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really what that is. It's like if you can get a client in and you can be like, oh, you got to file something right now. You got to do this. You got to do that. You're not going to have money. You're not going to get this. They could close the bank accounts.
Or you're going to get screwed.
Yeah. Or else you're going to get, you're going to have all these problems if you don't do A, B, C, and D. And then next thing you know, you're writing a big fatty, $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 retainer to a firm to represent you in this.
There's a certain class of attorneys that emphasizes your desire to win. Right. And I think a lot of people feel that way.
Right.
They're angry about the divorce.
Right.
They're hurt that they're being left, or they're afraid that this other person who controlled the finances is going to run away with everything.
Right.
And so they are attracted to an advertising message that says, we will leave no stone unturned.
Right.
We will win. We will do what it takes. Do you want to win or do you want to go home?
Right.
Kind of thing. I think that approach ignores your interest, several of your interests. One of them is to keep some of the family funds to raise kids or to build your post-divorce life. Another is the interest, the strong interest I believe you have in avoiding the litigation itself, which can be harmful to your family and, quite frankly, to your psyche as well.
Yeah, and to the children.
Right. Yeah, and then these firms, they also will. In a way, what they're implying is that you'll get a better result with them.
Right.
And sometimes that's true, and sometimes it isn't.
Right.
And you could end up spending $100,000 with a firm like this and not get the result that you thought you were going to get. It's more important to have somebody that shares your goals.
Right.
And your goal might be to absolutely destroy your ex and make them wish that they had never even mentioned the D word to you.
Right.
And if that's your goal, then the attorneys that hold themselves out as aggressive are probably what you're looking for.
Right. Just be ready to open your checkbook.
Be ready to open a checkbook and be ready to, at the end of that process, in my view, you're going to wonder, why did I do that?
Yeah.
You're going to, for the majority of people that choose that road, they end up regretting it later.
I think that's true.
Like the couples in mediations that we have, that their case has been going on for years, and they're ready to stop the madness.
Right.
They finally realized that the adversary system is not going to give them what they need.
Right, and we all go into it thinking that the judge is going to side with us or see how reasonable we are and see that the other side's a jerk and all these kinds of things. And honestly, the court's not there to make a decision about that, about who's the bigger jerk. The court, in some ways, doesn't care because the support numbers are going to be based on specific facts. The Division of Property in California is community, so it's 50-50. And the only way that you get a variance in the parenting schedule is usually if you have some really big concern, like the other person's an alcoholic or something really extreme. So it's kind of like we go in expecting that we're going to get this judgment from the judge that our ex is a jerk. And we don't really understand that that's not even the purpose of the whole process.
Right.
The tone of your case is set by the aggressive actions of that attorney.
Right.
And when you look at somebody that has a desire to help, number one, mediation is not kind of this afterthought of, oh, yeah, we do mediation. And just because an attorney, quote unquote, does mediation, that doesn't make them good or effective at it, in my opinion. Mediation is very much an art, and it very much involves a balance of the emotional and the legal.
Right.
That's the thing that's unique about family law. This is an emotional and a legal process, and you have to be able to help clients through both of those.
That's a good point.
But our goal is not to spearhead your divorce, even if Thomas is representing you. I mean, yes,
to be the tip of the spear.
Right. I mean, he's obligated to zealously represent clients, and obviously we're not going to. I mean, obviously we're advocating for you, and that should just be a given. But what we're really trying to do is come alongside and support you and educate you in what your options are, in understanding what various outcomes hold for you and what your choices are, because at the end of the day, our values probably aren't 100% lined up with your values. Hopefully they're fairly lined up if Thomas is your attorney,
yeah.
but no two people's values line up 100%. And so our goal is not to spearhead this for what we think your outcome needs to be, but to come along and support you and educate you and give you the tools and resources you need for us to be able to accomplish the outcome you're looking for, so that you're spearheading your divorce, not your attorney. You have to make sure when you're looking for that attorney, whether it's representation, mediation, reviewing your agreement, helping with documents, whatever it is, it's important that their values and their philosophy of how they handle cases be aligned with how you want your case to go.
Right. And you know what? If you want to have a no scorched earth policy and you've got a war chest of multiple hundreds of $1,000s, then that's you can do that.
Right.
I'm not suggesting, that you automatically follow my values.
Right.
But what I'm saying is that a lot of times you have to sit down and make a list of the outcomes that you really want, which one of the important outcomes is I don't want to spend more than $10,000 on my attorney.
Right.
Or I don't want to have to go to court. I prefer to stay in court. I prefer to avoid trial. I would prefer to, I would like to have somebody who preserves my co-parenting relationship and somebody who looks at the big picture rather than parsing out every little, and then ask those questions at the interview.
Right.
We're all going to puff up our credentials. I was in the top third of my class in law school, and I was
blah, blah, blah.
blah, blah, blah. And I did this, and I appeared before the Supreme Court, and all this other stuff that they'll say. I'm in super lawyers. I was elected as San Diego's best
right.
family law attorney in the history of mankind.
Right. This is a family law case that should focus on your family.
Right. And your interests.
Right.
Which oftentimes don't align with your attorney's interests.
Right.
As we've said in past podcasts, sometimes your attorney's interests are in direct conflict with yours.
Mm-hmm.
Because the more hearings and discovery and other litigation tactics they use, the more money they make.
Right.
And they are in it to win it.
Right.
Whereas you're in it to move on with life.
Hopefully.
Yeah. It's more important to find out if your interests and your goals align with the philosophy of that attorney. And you can discern a lot of that by looking at their advertising. Look at their website. What are they holding? How are they holding themselves out? What are they saying about themselves? And what you don't learn, you can find out when you interview them to hire them, and ask them some questions about this. Ask them what their average fee is, like you said before, and ask them about their philosophy of settlement, and find out if they are cooperation oriented or if they are in it to win it. And here's a hint: go with the firm that asks you that jumps in, tries to help you.
Right.
That you're the focus, not them.
Their credentials.
Right.
Yeah.
So.
True. All right. So we hope this has been helpful. I know this is something we get, questions about a lot, and it's hard to ask an attorney if you should hire an aggressive attorney. That's kind of
it's a conflict of interest, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a conflict to ask that question. So hopefully we've helped you out with that a little bit.
We'll grow in number, fueled by them to see the horizon, turn us to thousands.